Tears of the Kingdom comes out next week. And with that, we have to say goodbye to an amazing game during an amazing era. Breath of the Wild was one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch and undoubtedly one of the best launch titles for any Nintendo console. So let's say bye to such a fun era and one of the greatest games of all time, Breath of the Wild. March 3rd, 2017, a new addition to the Nintendo family, the Nintendo Switch, launching beside Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was a new step in the Legend of Zelda series. We had never seen anything like it. We've never seen a Legend of Zelda game with such an open world that lets you do whatever you want. We were all used to that linear play style where the story and the gameplay just walks you through. Breath of the Wild was a completely different step in a right direction. Many people loved it. Many people doubted it. But overall, it was one of the best launch titles and one of the best Legend of Zelda games ever made. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold 925,000 copies in the month of March during its release. Many people were very excited for Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was originally made for the Wii U. Then they decided to port it over to the Switch, which was the new console during the month of March, and many people loved it. Many people were hyped even before we knew about the Switch and we knew about Breath of the Wild being the name of this new Legend of Zelda game. It was originally called Zelda U until it finally received its title, Breath of the Wild. The first month was a huge success for this up-and-coming Nintendo Switch console and Nintendo Switch Legend of Zelda. Many people enjoyed it, and many people were excited to see what Nintendo and the Legend of Zelda series will do for their new and upcoming games. Breath of the Wild was one of the best Legend of Zelda games and one of the best Nintendo Switch games. Breath of the Wild is just such a big game in the Nintendo franchise and on the Nintendo Switch. Without this game, the Nintendo Switch isn't as big of a staple as it is right now. Breath of the Wild really made the Nintendo Switch what it is today. Whenever somebody mentions a Nintendo Switch game, they either mention Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. And both of these games are open world games. The Legend of Zelda franchises is only going to build off of this, especially now that Tears of the Kingdom is coming out, and it also is an open world game. There's so much to improve from Breath of the Wild, even though Breath of the Wild was basically a perfect game. Breath of the Wild was such a fun, new experience with so much to do in such a big world. Now going into Tears of the Kingdom, we now know that there's no way it could be anything less than Breath of the Wild. People are playing Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom that have never even touched a Legend of Zelda game before. That's how big of an impact Breath of the Wild had. They're going to this game just so that they can go and play Tears of the Kingdom. Regularly, you don't have to play Breath of the Wild. You can go straight into Tears of the Kingdom without having to play Breath of the Wild. But the thing is, Breath of the Wild had such a big impact on Nintendo fans and Legend of Zelda fans that it makes people want to play the game. This game had such a big impact, it left a big impact, and it's going to leave such a big mark on the Legend of Zelda series in the next 10 years or so. We're in a new era, leaving the old one in the Legend of Zelda series. I first played Breath of the Wild when it did come out, and I've played Legend of Zelda for who knows how long, ever since I was a kid. Breath of the Wild was a new and just a different experience from what I previously experienced playing Legend of Zelda. This game changed everybody's perspective on what open world games should look like. Breath of the Wild was such a big game that it changed everybody's minds of what Legend of Zelda is as a franchise. Legend of Zelda has never even attempted something like this. It's always been the same throughout. A linear story game with fun mechanics. But this changed everything. Breath of the Wild changed everybody's point of view on any Legend of Zelda game to come out in the future. Tears of the Kingdom is what we are witnessing right now, and it only comes out a week from now. And we're going to experience another fantastic open world game with a better story. Breath of the Wild changed everything. It changed the way we look at video games. It changed the way we play video games. In Tears of the Kingdom, they are improving on this, but without Breath of the Wild, we would never have Tears of the Kingdom. The appreciation for Breath of the Wild is high. because we've never experienced anything like this. We've waited so long for Breath of the Wild when it was first announced in 2014 as Zelda U. Then it got delayed. 3 years later, we get the game in 2017 on a brand new console, the Nintendo Switch. Breath of the Wild changed everything for everyone. We now have this game in the books as one of the greatest to ever be made, and it's been so long since we received this game, and the fact that this game is still so alive shows how successful it was as a Legend of Zelda game, as an open world game, and as a video game in general. It changed everybody. This game is one of the best to ever be made. It had new mechanics, open world, you can do whatever you want. Yes, story, lackluster, but all you do is improve in the next game, and the next game will be another fantastic title. Breath of the Wild was a test for the next titles to come, such as Tears of the Kingdom. But Breath of the Wild was what we all started with. We all started playing Breath of the Wild, the first Legend of Zelda. Breath of the Wild set such a big example on open world games and Legend of Zelda games for the near future. This game left such a big mark in the Nintendo franchise and the Legend of Zelda franchise. Breath of the Wild will never be forgotten, and it will always be remembered as one of the most fun and one of the best Legend of Zelda games we've ever experienced. Experiencing Breath of the Wild firsthand was something unreal. You walk out of the Shrine of Resurrection and you see the beautiful view with the title pop up and the music. It just feels so good. If I could play Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom for the first time again, I would, because that experience is not like any other experience in any video game. Breath of the Wild leaves such a big mark on everyone who's played it. I don't know many people that didn't enjoy the game. Yes, there are many traditional fans that like linear Legend of Zelda games, but this was a new step. They did it right, and it was so successful that they decided to start this new way of making Legend of Zelda games. And Tears of the Kingdom is almost here, something we've been waiting 6 years for. Breath of the Wild is the foundation for it. It can only get better from here. So Breath of the Wild left one of the biggest marks in gaming history when you look back at it. It's setting an example for upcoming open world games and Legend of Zelda games, especially Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom is going to be so much more improved. We know that there's so much more to that game than we had in Breath of the Wild, even though Breath of the Wild was one of the best Legend of Zelda games ever made. Breath of the Wild will never be forgotten, and it is truly sad to see the end of an era for one of the greatest Nintendo games and video games of all time. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys would play Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom for the first time again, would you? Let me know in the comments down below. This is the end of the Breath of the Wild era. We are going into the Tears of the Kingdom era, and possibly many more games to come in the near future. But with all of that, I thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It is the end of one of the best Legend of Zelda games of all time. Personally, one of my favorites, and hopefully Tears of the Kingdom tops it, because it's only 1 week away. Friday, May 12th, Tears of the Kingdom launches on Nintendo Switches across the world. But again, I thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Link! You must find me.